Has this ever happened to you? You're in the shower, water running down your back, completely zoned out. Or maybe you're stuck in traffic, just staring through the windshield at nothing. And then suddenly, you snap back. You realize you've spent the last 10 minutes deep inside an argument that never happened. A confrontation with your boss, where you finally said everything you were too scared to say. Or maybe you were replaying a fight from 3 years ago, except this time you had the perfect comeback. The one that would have ended everything. The one that would have made you win. And when you come back to reality, you feel something strange. A weird mix of relief that you weren't actually fighting, and this tiny, almost embarrassing disappointment. Because honestly, for a moment, that fake argument felt more real than the bathroom tiles in front of you. If you're nodding right now, or quietly laughing to yourself, take a breath. You are not alone. And more importantly, you are not broken. This is one of the most common things the human mind does. Almost everyone experiences it. But nobody talks about it, because there's this quiet shame around it. We think, what's wrong with me? Why am I wasting time living out scenarios that will never happen? Am I losing my grip on reality? Today, we are breaking that guilt completely. What you're experiencing isn't simple daydreaming, the kind you did as a kid imagining you were a superhero. No, we're talking about complex, immersive, emotionally loaded realities that your mind builds with the kind of detail you'd expect from a film director. These mental simulations can feel so vivid that your body responds to them as if they're actually happening. And here's what I need you to really hear. Creating these scenarios is not a sign of weakness. It doesn't mean you're immature, unstable, or losing your mind. It actually means the opposite. It means your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do over millions of years. Think of your brain as a problem-solving machine. Its entire job is to keep you safe, prepare you for threats, and make sense of a world that doesn't always make sense. But what happens when it faces a problem it can't solve in the physical world? An injustice that was never addressed, a conversation that left you with a knot in your chest, the fear of an uncertain future. Since it can't fix it out there, it tries to fix it in here. And this is where it gets fascinating, and also a little dangerous. There is a specific part of your brain that lights up like a power grid when you do this, and understanding what it does and what happens when it spirals out of control will change the way you see your own mind forever. Let's go inside. Have you noticed that these mental scenarios almost never show up when you're focused? They don't attack when you're solving a complex problem or in the middle of a conversation. They appear when you're on autopilot, washing dishes, driving a familiar route, lying in bed waiting for sleep. That's not a coincidence. Neuroscience has a name for what's happening. It's called the default mode network. Think of it as your brain's background processing system. When you stop paying active attention to the outside world, this network switches on. For most people, it generates random thoughts, memories, little mental noise. But in people who tend toward excessive daydreaming, this network becomes hyperactive. It turns into a full production studio, running 24 hours a day inside your skull. But why does it produce drama? Why arguments and confrontations instead of peaceful imagery? This is where something called counterfactual thinking comes in. Your brain uses these imagined scenarios like a flight simulator. Pilots practice in simulators so that when a real emergency hits, their body already knows what to do. your brain does the exact same thing. It runs alternative versions of reality to process what already happened and to rehearse for what might come. It's trying to prepare you for the unpredictable, so that if someone ever does attack you, humiliate you, or dismiss you, you'll have the perfect response ready. Smart, right? In theory, yes. But here's the real root of why this happens so intensely for so many people. The deeper reason behind all of it comes down to one single word: control. Life is chaotic. You cannot predict how other people will react. You cannot rewind time. If you go and ask for a raise in real life, your boss might say no. And that is terrifying. That vulnerability is real and uncomfortable. But inside your mind, you are the director and the lead actor. You control everything. You deliver the perfect line. Your boss is moved. You get the promotion. You win every argument. You are finally completely understood. Psychologically, this is called a compensation mechanism, and it's especially common in people who at some point in their lives felt powerless, ignored, or dismissed. People who grew up being talked over. People who were never given the space to express themselves. The mind becomes a refuge, the one place where you finally have the power you couldn't find in the world outside. But here's the question that changes everything. What happens when the refuge becomes a trap? This is where the flight simulator stops being useful and starts draining your life. Pay close attention to this, because this is the line between a harmless mental habit and something that is quietly, consistently exhausting you. Have you ever caught yourself feeling genuinely angry at someone? Real anger, not a vague irritation, but actual heat in your chest, and then realized they hadn't actually done anything? You imagined the scenario. You imagined them dismissing you or disrespecting you, and your body responded as if it really happened. Your heart rate went up. You felt tension in your jaw. Maybe your hands got a little tight. You suffered the stress of a life you weren't even living. This happens because of a fascinating and slightly terrifying scientific fact. Your amygdala, which is the emotional processing center of your brain, is genuinely terrible at telling the difference between a real threat and a vividly imagined one. When you're deep inside one of those mental confrontations, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline, the exact same stress hormones it would release in an actual conflict. This is why you can end the day completely exhausted without having done anything physically demanding. You fought battles that existed only in your head, and your nervous system doesn't know the difference. But here's the cost that goes even deeper than exhaustion. Psychologists call it substitution. You rehearse a difficult conversation so many times in your imagination that your brain starts to feel like it already happened. You've planned out how you're going to set that boundary, or ask for what you need, or finally say the thing you've been holding back so thoroughly that your emotional energy is spent. And in real life, you do nothing. You stay paralyzed. You stay silent. And slowly, the gap between who you are in your head and who you are in your actual life grows wider. The imaginary world starts to feel more appealing because it's safe, predictable, and fully under your control. Reality, by comparison, feels like too much risk. But you are not trapped here. There are specific science-backed ways to step out of this loop, and none of them require you to fight your own mind, because that's the key. You don't fight the current, you redirect it. The first technique is called externalization. When a scenario keeps looping, When your brain won't let a certain imagined conversation go, write it down. Get it out of your head and onto paper. The act of writing it signals to your brain that the problem has been registered. It no longer needs to keep it running in the background. It's the mental equivalent of closing 20 browser tabs on a slow laptop. The processing power gets freed up. The loop slows down. The second is what I call the intention filter. Next time you catch yourself deep in one of these fantasies, ask yourself one honest question. Am I rehearsing something I'm actually going to do? Or am I hiding here to avoid doing it? If it's real preparation, use it. Take notes. Channel that energy into actual action. But if it's escapism, if you know deep down that you'll never have that conversation or make that move, apply the third technique, the 10-minute rule. Don't try to suppress the fantasy. Suppressing thoughts almost always makes them stronger. Instead, give your brain a scheduled window. Set a timer for 10 minutes. During those 10 minutes, you have full permission to be the hero. Win the argument. Deliver the perfect speech. Live the fantasy completely. When the timer goes off, you come back. What this does over time is teach your mind that the imaginary world is a place to visit, not a place to live. You're creating a boundary your brain can actually work with. And for moments when the trance is especially deep, when you've been pulled under and you can't quite find your way back, use sensory anchoring. Bring your attention directly to your physical body. Feel the weight of your feet on the floor. Notice the sensation of your breath moving in and out. Feel the texture of your clothing against your skin. When you do this, you activate the sensory cortex, and that activation pulls energy away from the default mode network that's been running the film in your head. The trance breaks, not because you fought it, but because you gave your brain something real to hold on to. Here is the truth I want you to walk away with today. Your mind is like a river. You will never stop the current. Imagined scenarios will always appear. That's not a flaw. That's your brain being a brain. But you get to choose whether you sit on the bank and watch the water flow past, or whether you jump in and let it carry you somewhere you didn't intend to go. The imaginary world will always feel safer. It's designed to. But it's the only place where nothing actually changes. Real life is messy. It has no script. It doesn't let you edit your lines before you deliver them. But it's also the only place where things actually happen. The only place where the conversation you've been rehearsing can finally take place for real. The only place where you can actually win. Not just imagine winning. That's where you belong.